Welcome to the Mom Keys to Mental Peace podcast. I'm your host and sister in Christ, Tari Kaya Allen Butler. This is a podcast for millennial moms who struggle with limiting beliefs and want to learn how to make over their mindsets and level up their lifestyle in faith and family. Tap in each week for the Mom Keys to Mental Peace podcast, where you will learn major keys to stop coming up short on your goals and start leveling up for the type of lifestyle you desire God's way. Ready to level up? Let's do it. All right, so hey, everybody. Per usual, what's up to my OGs who tune in weekly to the podcast? I'm so happy to have you here. And if you are new to the podcast platform, hey sis, welcome. So happy to have you join the family. All right, so this month, for the month of May, is the ultimate holiday, Mother's Day. So the topic for most of May, the topics for most of May that I'll be sharing will have to do with motherhood. So I'm excited for that. All right, so today's episode title is How to Help Your Child If They Are Struggling in School. Okay? How to help your child if they are struggling in school. And already, sis, if this relates to you or you know a mom that this could help, go ahead and share this episode with her. Okay? All right, so getting into it, when it comes to helping your child if they're struggling in school, let's identify if, in fact, your child is struggling in school. So I've got a few questions to ask you. If you say yes to any of these questions, then you may be on this trail where your child is struggling in school. So the first one is, do you get a lot of phone calls from your child's teacher or school reporting their disruptive behavior? Okay. Does your child frequently bring home a behavior chart that reflects they had a hard day at school? So this could be like a color chart. Maybe they have like a stoplight. Green means good, all the way down to red means not so good of a day. Some type of numbers, or I know my daughter's school has Class Dojo where they can earn points on this app or points be rejected. So at the end of the day, with whatever behavior scale that your child's teacher has, are they constantly, is their day constantly showing and reflecting that they're having a hard day? Are you and your child frustrated during homework time because they don't understand the material? Sis, do you find yourself yelling, if Johnny had 5 apples, and your child just is not registering what that means? Do y'all frequently get frustrated during homework time? Does your child bring home underperforming grades? All right. So C being average, are they bringing home grades lower than a C? If they're in those younger elementary ages, are they bringing home U's for unsatisfactory or N's for needs improvement? And last but not least, that was the last one. Okay, so if your child brings home underperforming grades. All right, so if you said yes to any of these questions, sis, you are in the right place, and there is no judgment at all to you or to your child. Why? Because I can relate. All right, so quick story time. My oldest son, who is now 14 and 8th grade in middle school, has made a full circle in his academic and educational career. And I pray that as I share his story, it can be hope and encouragement to you, because baby, I was so frustrated with his academics and his behavior in school in the earlier years. So kindergarten and 1st grade were so hard for my oldest son at that time. The behavior charts that I mentioned earlier, he was always on orange or red, which was like the lowest as far as behavior. So he was always having a hard time with his behavior in this behavior chart. He struggled with reading and fell behind as the curriculum increased week after week. So I do believe kindergarten is doing reading a little different now, but at this time they had a list of sight words that they had to learn each week. Now the first, I'll say 1 to 3 weeks, we were on it. We were doing good, but it seemed like, each new set of words that they got, he was falling further and further behind and no longer catching on as quickly. So here we are. We don't really know week 4 words. Now we got week 5, week 6, and week 7. And we're struggling and falling further behind. And he's frustrated and I'm frustrated because it's just like, well, what is going on here? Okay. As well as like letter recognition and things like that. I felt like at the beginning, he was on track, but it's like the more material that they added on, I noticed that he started to fall behind each week. I could tell that his teacher did not have a good relationship or rapport with him in kindergarten. Pretty much from her behavior, from the things she reported about him and the conversations we had, I could tell that she did not trust my son. So one example of this, there was a situation where she called me saying that my oldest son called someone the B word in the classroom. Now, I'm not that parent that is too naive and feel like, oh, my child would never, oh, no, he wouldn't. But I know my child, right? This isn't something that he says at home. We don't call each other that at home. Like, that's not a word that just is fluently passed around at the house. So I asked further questions like, well, how do you know he said this, or what was the circumstance? Y'all, she tells me that, well, she was not physically in the room to hear him, but as she was out of the room, a trusted student told her that he said this word. And then she said that she asked the class to raise their hand if they heard him say this word. Now, let's pause here. There's so many things that are wrong with this. For one, you were not in the classroom to hear it with your own ears that he said that. For two, you're saying that this is a trustworthy 5-year-old. Keep in mind, this is kindergarten. A trustworthy 5-year-old to you that is relaying the message that my son said this word. Okay, this student may be trustworthy to you, but they're not trustworthy to me. I don't know who this child is, right? I trust my son more than this child that you're saying that you trust. And then lastly, you asked a group of 5-year-olds who heard Jameer say B-I-T-C-H. Is that what you're telling me? Like, how did that go? What did that look like? And of course, they're all going to raise their hand and say, ooh, me, I heard, just for the setup of the situation. So as a parent, I just wasn't accepting that. And I felt like, how dare you come for my son with these accusations? And at the beginning, you stated you weren't even in the classroom. So that's one example where I felt like she does not trust my son. She does not have a relationship or rapport with him. And really, it seems like he couldn't do anything right in her classroom. There was even one time that she called me saying that he was not able to participate in some activity going on in the school because he was touching the walls in the hallway. Keep in mind, y'all, again, these are 5-year-olds in kindergarten. Couldn't you have just told him, hey, stop touching the wall and moved on? Why does he have to be completely taken out of an activity for touching the wall? Okay. So I did not feel like he had a good relationship with his kindergarten teacher. And I feel like it kind of followed over into his first grade year as well. I just felt like she was being petty with my son and didn't really try to understand him. I was often frustrated during homework time because he really struggled with the material being sent home. Like I said, it just seemed like week after week he was falling further and further behind with the material. And it was just really frustrating to sit there and watch him struggle and me trying to break it down as simple as I could and him just not grasping and retaining the information. It was just like, what are we doing? What is going on here? I'm about to pull my hair out. I found myself constantly yelling at him, constantly lecturing at him to get his behavior together at school and to do better on his schoolwork. I scalded him for falling behind. So I was always in his ear, like, you need to do what you're supposed to be doing. You in his classroom playing, you ain't focusing, just always in his ear and always on him about what he was not doing right and what he constantly needed to do better. I was afraid that he wouldn't be able to read, as the older that he got, because I understand the foundation of reading. And as an educator, I see the behavior of the children in the classrooms who don't know how to read, who don't know what's going on. So I was afraid that he would be labeled, that he would be a statistic in the classroom, that he would continue to fall further behind and never learn how to read. That was a true fear of mine. And I was also just scared for his future in school, period. Keep in mind, he's 5 years old in kindergarten. And I just want to put a pin here because there's a lot of parents whose children are struggling in kindergarten. And you got to think, this is their first experience with school ever. Yes, they may have been to preschool. Yes, they may have been to daycare. But like school is a completely different world. And they expect those kids to hit the ground running. So there are things that you can do with your child, like that birth to 4 years old before they start preschool to, help prepare them for school. But for a lot of these babies, this is their first experience ever in a school setting. This is their first experience having to sit down in one spot, to attend to a task, to follow directions. Like kindergarten is a lot. I know picking my daughter up from kindergarten, she would be asleep in the car before we pulled out of the building. Like it's a lot going on with their bodies and their brains throughout the day and a lot of expectation on them. So don't determine your child's whole school career off of kindergarten. Okay, that was, I would say, a mistake that I made. I felt guilty about the struggles that he had in school simply because I work in education, right? So it's just like, how am I an educator and my child is struggling in school? That was something that I felt really guilty about. I avoided working with him at home because it was just too stressful. It was frustrating, and overall, I feel like it was painful to face. Because if we were doing homework and stuff at school, that meant that I had to see and stare in the face my child who was struggling with these tasks, and it just broke my heart and hurt me so bad that I would have rather just avoided it altogether than to have to keep facing this issue night after night during homework. Now, there was a light at the end of this tunnel. Thank you, God. I feel like things kind of turned around for him in second grade. Now I'm going to put a pin here as well before I get into that. I just had a discussion with a group of ladies this weekend, and we were talking about children struggling in school, and I was kind of sharing my son's testimony. But one thing I realized for his success in school was I worked at the school he went to for about a few months. So they were able to see my face. They were able to connect me as Jameer's mom. Oh, his mom works here. Oh, we know him. And I felt like my face being in that school and them connecting that he was my child kind of was the jump start to them really taking him serious or taking him under their wing and really pouring into him and giving him the help and resources that he needed. And I kind of pointed out, it was like, that's not right, but it definitely, it's not right, but it definitely was an advantage that I feel like my son had. And I hate that that is a unspoken truth in the school system, that usually if you're a teacher with a child in the school system, the teachers know them. So they're going to show them a little bit more attention, or dare I say favoritism. And again, that's not right. It's just the nature of the beast. But I really wish that teachers would give this same energy to anybody who need it, right? To every child who needs it. I know me as a speech therapist, I don't care if your mama, your daddy, your grandma, whoever work here, I'm going to give you the best that I have to give you in each session. I'm going to serve every child as if they were my own, with the same quality that I would want somebody to give my child. Okay. So in second grade, I felt like we started to reach that light at the end of the tunnel with his teacher. And she noticed his struggles and recommended that he goes through the intervention process, right? So in the interventions, this is a step that most schools do before referring them to EC or exceptional children program, which at that point is saying that your child has a learning disability, they're not able to read or do math or whatever skill, and they need that extra pull out help to be able to access the curriculum. So he was referred after they did the interventions. They saw that there still was no growth. So they referred him to EC Reading, and he was in this program from second grade up until seventh grade. Now, in seventh grade, he advocated for himself, y'all. He kind of started speaking on it, I would say, in sixth grade. Like, I don't need to be pulled out for this class anymore. And just a side note, here in North Carolina, sixth through eighth grade is middle school. So elementary stops at fifth. So once he got into middle school, it was kind of like, I don't need this class anymore. They're pulling me out for reading. I don't need this. Also in those classes, he was making like 90s, 95s, really high grades in that class. And he was saying the work was just really easy, that the teacher was using his work as an example to the other kids. He's like, I don't need to be in here anymore. So I was really proud of him for advocating for himself. So I spoke with the EC teacher. He agreed that, what he's seeing in this classroom compared to, his grades and his other classes is like, we feel like he can handle it. If it gets too far, this is always something that we can revisit to see if he needs it again. So we signed the paperwork and he was exited from the program. And y'all, my son is maintaining an A, B, and C grades on his own in middle school in eighth grade without being pulled out for that reading class. And I'm so proud of him for, again, advocating for himself, but also being able to hold his own and maintain his grades without having to need that extra support. But I'm also grateful for the extra support and the help that those teachers did, the quality of help that they provided for him to get the help that he needed to improve his reading overall. So I'm grateful. He's able to maintain good grades. I feel like sports is a huge motivator for this because, in any type of school sport, if your grade is not right, then you're not able to play that sport. So I feel like that's a huge motivator for him to stay on it. So he has came a long way in his school career. His confidence has gone up. In regards to reading, in regards to school. I know before it was like he really did not like school, but I feel like now, he wakes up, he has a positive attitude. It's not every morning, but I don't feel like he's dreading going to school or like, I hate being here. Or it's this horrible place. Like his confidence has come full circle from when we first got into school, that kindergarten, first grade year. Also, a huge thing that I feel like helped is that I prayed for his academics in fifth grade because I was afraid about him going to middle school, right? I feel like elementary, they're still kind of babies. They're kind of protected. The teachers are right there beside them. But I know that in middle school, the training wheels are kind of taking off a little bit. So I was really nervous about his success in middle school. So I had to pray and surrender and give that over to God as he transitioned to middle school. And God showed up and showed out, baby, by putting the right people and resources in place to help him. And I'm just at peace that it wasn't all up to me to figure it out. I feel like a lot of times as moms, especially when it comes to our babies, we feel like we are the ones that have to solve all of their problems or any issues that comes up is ours. Excuse me. We feel like it's our responsibility when that's not the case at all. Sometimes you have to give it up and give it over to God and allow the people and resources that are around him to help him the way that they can. All right. So I pray that that story inspired you. I just want to share 5 quick ways to help your child if they are struggling in school. So one of the first things that you can do is to have a parent-teacher conference. Okay. I would recommend face-to-face, sitting down, okay? Not over the phone, face-to-face in the classroom, sitting down, talking to the teacher. Now, I suggest this because this helps you to establish rapport and get a feel for the teacher and their relationship with your child, okay? You can notice your child's mannerisms while they're in the classroom with you, how the teacher is acting. I know some teachers try to put on face and get off fake when they know that the parent is there, right? But this would be a good way for you to just really get a feel for the teacher and what's What's their relationship like? What's the dynamic of the teacher? What's their attitude like? What's their mannerism like? Are they really messy? What's the order of the classroom? If there's a bunch of clutter and stuff everywhere, that's a red flag that there may be a lack of classroom management. But if you see things organized, a flow and a system in the classroom, then that's a sign that, okay, this teacher has classroom management and kind of knows what they're doing and what's going on. Ask questions about the schedule and expectations in the classroom throughout the day. All right. Again, some behaviors in the classroom or lack of academics are due to a lack of classroom management. Okay. It's not always the child's fault or the child doing something wrong. We have to keep in mind that these are children going to school, and the teacher in that classroom is the adult. So the teacher sets the tone for the classroom. The teacher sets the tone for the expectations of the classroom, the organization, and the flow of the classroom. If all of that is broken down and there's nothing in place for the child to follow, then that's when you start to see those behaviors. That's when you start to see grades failing. So that's something that's really important to take note of. Discuss what has been implemented in the classroom so far. Are there certain seating arrangements in the classroom, right? If your child is constantly getting in trouble for talking, okay, well, what seating arrangements have you made? Have you put them closer to you? Have you moved them away from this talking friend? If you notice that they're distracted, have you moved them closer to the board so that you can, see them and help them and make sure that they're paying attention? Ask if they have implemented any type of modified work assignments or started working on any interventions if they are struggling on their grades. A lot of schools now, I know a lot of them are different, but I feel like they all have some type of base where if a child is failing or falling behind, that there are some type of interventions put in place to start helping that child to, do better. It's kind of like tutoring or that extra specific help to help them to do better in the classroom. If they're saying no, they have not done any modifications or interventions, okay, well, that's a red flag, and that's something that needs to be discussed and put in place. Talk about the frequency of your child's discipline and how the discipline is handled. So again, are there behavior charts? Does your child constantly get sent to detention? This can be known as ISS or in-school suspension or BIP, which is a behavior intervention prevention, I think. But yes, this essentially is detention. So is your child constantly going to detention? I know another disciplinary act is silent lunch. Sometimes they have to sit on silent lunch. So just kind of talk about the frequency of the discipline, how often are these things happening, and what disciplines are being put in place. Because sometimes a kid don't care if they're on silent lunch, or a kid don't care if they're being sent to BIP or detention. That's a break for them to get out the classroom, right? So really acknowledge and see well, how often are they being sent? Because that could be an escape route. They know if I act out, then I can be sent out of Miss class and then I ain't got to do no work. So that's something to really dive into and examine. Get the principal involved in the meeting if you feel like there's a lack of understanding and relationship between your child and the teacher. I think this is really important to consider including admin if you and the teacher just cannot come to a resolution or conclusion, or if you see that there is strife in the relationship between that teacher and child. Maybe they need to be moved to a different classroom. Maybe that teacher needs to be spoken to. I'm not sure, but at that point, if y'all can't come to a resolution, then it's above you at this point and needs to be handled above you. So there's nothing wrong with involving administration in this as well. Also, inform teachers of any major changes at home that you're comfortable with. Now, I know there are some major changes where it's like, that ain't none of nobody's business. But some of those major changes is affecting the child's behavior in the classroom that the teacher may need to know, or maybe you can say, hey, I don't feel comfortable with sharing details of what's going on, but just know, hey, something's going on, so little Johnny may be behaving XYZ. So some things to inform them about is divorce or breakups happening in the home, death in the family, family members being sent away. Like I know we have some students who their parents has been sent to jail or something like that, or in the hospital long term for like a traumatic illness or something. If there's any type of job change or job loss, you can inform your teacher of that, because your mood and stuff at home, you know, we may not tell kids verbatim what's going on, but they're observant, they're watching, they're hearing conversations that are going on, and this can affect their behavior in the classroom. So whatever you feel comfortable with, be sure to share and update the teachers with that information, okay? The second thing you can do is try to relax and stay calm during homework time, okay? Constantly yelling, "How many apples does little Johnny have left?" is not going to make the question any easier. Okay, sis? Just breathe, relax, and calm down. If you or your child gets frustrated during homework time, then stop. Stop doing the homework. Put the pencil down, put the paper down, stop and walk away from it, okay? Take a break and set a timer for ever how long you need to take that break before y'all can come back and revisit the homework assignment. If it becomes too much, talk to the teacher about sending modified assignments home to minimize frustration. So maybe instead of 10 problems, okay, y'all do 5. Or instead of 12 spelling words, y'all work on 6. You know, have that conversation with the teacher and explain what's going on at the house and the level of frustration, and how it's not beneficial to either one of you, right? The child's not learning, you're frustrated, the energy is off in the house. It's just too much for everybody. I personally feel like, and this is me speaking as an educator, that I don't think that it's beneficial to do homework at home after school, okay? For one, they've already done work for 8 hours at school. I know me, for my job, if I've been doing paperwork and stuff all day, baby, I'm not trying to see no paperwork when I get home. I don't want to see another paperwork until I return to school. So I feel like we have to think about that for kids too. Like, dang, I just did work for 8 hours. Then you want me to come home and continue to do another hour or so of work. I feel like that's a lot. Also, there's no evidence that homework improves their grades or performance in the classroom. I personally feel like it's important to rest your brain the same way it's important to rest your body after working out, right? So they say it's not good to just work out 7 days straight in a week. You should implement at least 1 to 2 rest days in that week to give your muscles time to rejuvenate and recover. I feel the same way for our brains. If you're just going, work, doing stuff all day, then coming home after doing that, work, going, your brain doesn't have any time to relax and rejuvenate. I feel like homework, I'm team no homework over here at this house. Like, I don't push the issue for it. I feel like there's also a lot that goes on in the evening time after school. Both of my children are signed up for extracurricular activities, so there's practices, games, and things going on. Homework is the last thing on everybody's mind at the end of the day. So that's my spiel on homework. All right, the third thing that you can do to help your child if they're struggling in school is to hire a tutor to help with academics, or find a mentor to help with behaviors, okay? So here's my thing when it comes to teaching your child or helping your child with schoolwork. And this is something that freed me. Just because we know something doesn't mean that we know how to teach it, right? So I know how to read. I know how to do basic math, but I don't know how to teach that to somebody. And yes, I work in education, but I'm a speech therapist. I know how to specifically teach articulation errors, language skills, and things like that. I don't know how to teach how to read. So I feel like that's something that a lot of parents kind of beat themselves up about. Like, y'all frustrated, but maybe you don't know the method of how to teach this thing. So you need to bring someone in who does know how to implement that method. It's okay that you don't know how to do. It's okay to admit that you don't know how to do some of the work that your child brings home. I unapologetically know any type of math over 3rd grade. Baby, I don't know how to do it, okay? I just saw a meme a while ago. It was like, if somebody asked me to break down a fraction, I would just cry. And I was like, well, I wouldn't cry. I would tell them no, and that I have passed that phase in my life and I have moved on to other things. I'm not breaking down anybody's fractions, okay? That is in my past life, and I'm not doing that today. So don't be ashamed to say you don't know how to do something. Baby, it's okay. Okay? Also, usually when you're getting a tutor, that usually means you have to pay them something, usually hourly. But here's my thing on that. If we can invest money in clothes, shoes, games, and other things when it comes to our children, then we can invest in a tutor for our children. If we say that we prioritize their education and them learning things, we could spend a couple extra dollars for tutoring throughout the week, okay? And as far as a mentor, if your child is struggling with behavior, try to touch base with a close family friend that you trust, a local community member, a teacher at the school, maybe somebody outside of your child's classroom. I know the Boys and Girls Club has some mentorship programs. So you may really have to dig and search for some resources for somebody to come alongside your child and really pour into them and guide them and help them. Sometimes children need to hear it from somebody else in order for it to really resonate with them and for them to see a different perspective. Maybe they feel like your mama, you're supposed to say that, you always gonna say that, so it's just not hit in the same way as if somebody else were to talk with them and share with them. So that's something to consider as well. All right, the fourth thing that you can do is talk to your child and listen to them. All right, the listening part is bigger than the talking to them, okay? This is that chance to really give them a chance to vent and share about what's going on. Have an open conversation with your child about what triggers them to act out in the classroom or what their struggles are in the classroom when it comes to academics. They could be dealing with bullies at school. The work could just simply be too hard for them. Sometimes the work can be too easy and they feel bored in the classroom. They can have a poor relationship with the teacher, as I've shared earlier. They can just simply not like school because they feel like it's hard. That's a valid reason. They can be afraid of trying or afraid of getting something wrong. They can be tired in the classroom. They can be hungry. Or the last one, I'm going to step on some toes, it could be you. All right? It's hard to admit, but sometimes we can be the problem. All right? Parents, this is me speaking as a parent, including myself. Sometimes we can be the problem. I believe that sometimes the way a child behaves at school reflects on what they see at home. All right? So you have to stop and ask yourself, are you disrespectful at home to each other? I know there's one kid that I worked with. I was doing car rider duty. And this is a kid that we kind of go back and forth sometimes, but I'm usually able to redirect him or get back on path. And I will say that's the beauty of my job as a speech therapist. I only work with these kids for 20 to 30 minutes, 1 to 2 times a day, and then I send them on their merry way. So with this particular student, I was doing car rider duty, and he was getting out the car, and I heard him tell his mom, "Shut up, Mom. Get out the car and slam the door." So me and her kind of made eye contact through the window, and she just kind of like did a little, oh my gosh, like rolled her eyes or whatever. And it just was a revelation moment, like, okay, who am I in this classroom and at this school if he's telling his mom to shut up in the car? That wasn't his first time saying that. This is how he talks to her, So what are you allowing at the house? And I'm not saying that that's what you're allowing, but that's just an example of, how to self-evaluate what's going on at home, right? Are you guys disrespectful to each other? Do y'all talk to each other that way? Does he hear you? Well, does your child hear you talk to others that way in the home or on the phone? Like, that's something to take inventory of, because they're coming into the classroom and imitating what they see at home. All right? You have to ask yourself, do you talk bad about the school or the teacher in front of your children? This is a thing. If you're saying Miss don't know what she's talking about, and I'm going to get you out that school because they doing XYZ and they wrong and all this, that, and the third. Well, now they have heard you say that, and your mama, like, your opinion matters higher than anybody else's. So now they're coming back to school with that attitude like, well, you don't know what you're talking about anyway. And my mama says she don't like you. And my mama says she's going to take me out of school. Like, this is the energy they're coming back into the classroom with. So that's something to be mindful about at home. And last but not least, are there rules, boundaries, and expectations in place at your home? So kind of like I shared about that boy getting out the car telling his mom to shut up. Like, if you're telling mama to shut up at the house, who are we as staff members at this school? Okay? But I will say there will be boundaries, corrections, rules, and expectations in the classroom. So whatever's happening at the house, I know in my classroom or with me, that's not about to happen. And I feel like that's why I was able to kind of redirect that student when we were together. Because there were moments he tried me. He didn't tell me to shut up, but there were just like little snappy comments and we had to reel it back in. Ooh, baby. No, sir, that's not what we're going to do here. Okay. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And the last and final thing to help your child who may be struggling in school is to keep your child covered in prayer and surrender them over to God. Okay. We have to be okay with not having the answer to all of our children's problems. It is okay. All right. We are still learning daily as a parent. And think about like your oldest child, whatever age they are, you've never parented at that age before, right? I've never parented a teenager before. At that time when my son was in kindergarten, I never had a child in kindergarten before. I didn't know what to expect or what to do. So be okay with not having the answer to all the problems that arise with your children. Also, I would suggest that you pray specifically for their education journey. So pray for their teachers, pray for the administrators, pray for their coaches or any adult that they come in contact with that works with them. Pray that they learn to retain and apply the information that they learn in the classroom. Pray that God protects them from bullies and evil energy in the classroom. All right. And trust that they will be okay. Trust that God got them. They're his children before yours. He just gifted them to you to take care of and steward over on earth. But essentially, they are his children because he is their creator. So when you start to have that mindset, it kind of helps to relieve some of the worry a little bit. Okay. And just a few closing remarks to keep in mind, y'all. All children are not meant to be academic scholars or straight A students, just like all adults are not meant to be millionaires. Okay. It's just the nature of the beast, and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I know I shared that my son is making A's, B's, and C's, and I'm cool with that because I know his education journey. I know that certain subjects are going to be harder for him than others, and that's okay. I'm not going to attach his worth to a grade on a paper because he's so much more than that. Also, some children excel in other areas outside of the classroom. Okay, so celebrate and lean into those strengths and don't put so much pressure on grades and academics. Continue to speak life into your children and don't give up hope on them, y'all. Don't give up hope. Okay, so one quick reflection. Choose one strategy that you can implement that you heard today to help your child in school. All right. So that's all I have for you all today. I pray that this was helpful. Be sure to follow me on both Instagram and Facebook. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on the YouTube platform as well as any podcast platform that you listen to it. Be sure to share this out. I know I said at the beginning, if you know a mom or somebody that this could be helpful to, share it with them. And also be sure to leave a review on Apple Podcasts if you listen there. That really helps me out. And I'm going to start doing some shout outs for the reviews. So y'all be sure to leave them and I'll read them here on the podcast. Okay. All right. So that's all I have for you all. And I'll talk to you next week. Bye.